The word and concept of genre was devised by Aristotle in the time of the ancient Greeks. That's got nothing to do with this list, but don't let anyone ever tell you we don't do highbrow here at Team TripleJump. Video game genres help a player to understand how a game is going to go before they start playing. If something is an action-adventure, then it's probably not going to be very challenging in terms of gameplay. Equally, if you had a particularly taxing day at work, then a realistic asset management sim might not be what you're after. Sometimes in gaming, one title can switch between various different tropes over the course of its runtime, either to service the story or to prevent things from getting repetitive. This has worked wonders for certain games, keeping them fresh and interesting across a playthrough, whilst for others, it just makes things really confusing. This list is a healthy mix of both, as some entries pulled off the whole multi-genre thing with aplomb, while others struggled to get even one of them right, let alone multiple. I'm Ashton from TripleJump, and here are 10 video games that change genre halfway through. Number 10, Battletoads. There were plenty of options on the table when it came to naming this franchise. Frog fights, amphibian aggression, tadpole torment, but in the end, developer Rare opted for the non-alliterative Battletoads. Boring! 26 years after they made their last appearance, the Toads What Battle made their triumphant return in 2020, with a game for the PC and Xbox One. In an incredibly meta move, the titular Toads discover that they are no longer popular and must go on a quest to defeat their enemies and regain the public's affection in the process. The quest starts off as a side-scrolling 2.5D beat-em-up, akin to the original series when it used to live in arcades, but quickly devolves into a collection of unrelated puzzles as the story progresses. Some reviewers likened the final stages of Battletoads to a collection of minigames, ranging from platforming and rock, paper, scissors to this Asteroids ripoff. Such inconsistency really hurt this game's reception, as players couldn't get on board with such rapidly changing levels, resulting in a less than stellar return for their beloved franchise. What a shame, eh? Because toads have warts? Come on, that was funny. Number 9, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. In the early 2000s, Nintendo took some of the characters from their most central series and put them in an RPG environment for the first time. As if that wasn't enough of a change, they also took away one of their dimensions. Paper Mario for the N64 spawned an entire sub-series for the plumber, leading to a sequel, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, in 2004. The new game kept the turn-based mechanics of its predecessor, while setting the red-capped hero on a new mission to locate an ancient treasure and, of course, rescue a certain princess. Even when she's made of paper, Peach can't help but get kidnapped. The Thousand Year Door begins in typical light-hearted Mario fashion. Sure, there's work to be done, but the threat is never anything more than you'd find in a standard kids movie. Things take a turn for the dark and spooky partway through the game though, when it's discovered that the so-called treasure is actually a sleeping demon bent on destroying the world. That's a bit of a step up from dodging barrels and climbing ladders. Whilst Thousand Year Door is a great game, just be careful you don't get whiplash from that plot swerve. Number 8, Drakengard. Developed by KV and published by those cheeky chappies over at Square Enix, Drakengard is your typical fantasy fare. There's a war between two sides. A prince on one side seeks revenge against the other, and he teams up with a dragon to get the job done. Tale as old as time. With their new fire-breathing friend, players can take part in aerial levels as well as those on the ground, but for the most part, the game stays in the action-adventure genre. That is, until space and time starts to fall apart. After a climactic battle between the warring clans, a mysterious portal opens up in the sky, reviving the fallen troops as evil baby ghosts. Caviar and Square Enix have got some serious explaining to do with this one. Though Drakengard starts as a standard sword and sorcery adventure, by the end it becomes a full-on supernatural horror game, as players fight for their lives against a weird hybrid of Casper and the Rugrats. Some people absolutely love how wild Drakengard is, and a spin-off series was made based on one of its multiple endings, but we'll get to that in a little while. Ooh, exciting. Number 7, Brutal Legend. Before his Academy Award-worthy turn as Bowser in the Mario movie, Jack Black's greatest contribution to video game culture was Brutal Legend from 2009. Black lent his voice and likeness to Eddie Riggs, a heavy metal-loving roadie who ends up in a fancy land where all the biggest rock stereotypes come to life. It features cameos from legends like Rob Halford of Judas Priest, Lemmy from Motorhead, and Ozzy Osbourne, as well as a soundtrack featuring 75 different bands. If you like your music loud and scary, then oh boy are you in luck. Because of Black's involvement, it will not surprise you to learn this game begins as a comedy adventure, with standard third-person open-world traits. However, as the action unfolds and the player amasses more and more followers, the game introduces some real-time strategy elements, allowing users to command their forces in head-banging battles to the death. This was definitely a brave idea, but not one that paid off, sadly, as critics slammed the fact that the RTS portions were not advertised ahead of time, and were quite jarring when compared with the rest of the title. Never mind, Jack, you'll always have Peaches to fall back on. Number 6. Earthbound. For anyone who's ever wondered where Lucas and Ness from Smash Bros come from, wonder no more. They were both introduced in the Earthbound series, also known as Mother in Japan. Whilst Lucas didn't get his first showing until the third game, Ness was present in the original Earthbound, or Mother 2 Gigu no Gyakushu if you want to get badly pronounced Japanese about this. This title was known for its comedic send-ups of middle-class America, showing its child protagonist hanging out playing baseball and saving the world from hideous alien monsters. Wait, what was that last one? The shift from light ribbing to full-on sci-fi smacks you around the face harder than Ness's weapon of choice. But things don't stop there, as the final boss battle with the evil Gigas would have been considered a horror sequence at the time, given how scary it was in compared to boss battles in other titles. Perhaps this is why the game sold poorly in the US, as American players were used to much simpler games that followed a conventional structure. Then again, the fact that Earthbound labels the country Eagle Land probably doesn't help boost sales either. Number 5. Mission Critical. An MS-DOS game from 1995, Mission Critical deals with the completely outlandish proposal of artificial intelligence. Yep, that was definitely only something that people were worried about in the 90s, and hasn't become a horrifyingly realistic threat to humanity today. Anyway, where was I? Contemporary reviewers fawned over its gripping story and strong graphics for the time, clearly not put off by Mission Critical's gameplay, which changed more often than a chameleon on acid. Though it was marketed as an adventure title, the early parts of the game actually feature the player character performing repair jobs on their damaged ship. The action picks up when the player does some exploring of a nearby planet, only to pivot again to real-time strategy when they engage in a space battle. Did I mention that the enemy you're fighting is the United Nations? And that there's time travel involved, just in case you weren't confused enough. As complicated as this sounds on paper, Mission Critical does a good job of balancing its different gameplay styles to create an engaging, varied experience. Although, if you're looking to introduce somebody to video games, may I suggest you start with something simpler, like Mario Kart instead. Number 4. Little Inferno. Saying that Little Inferno changes genre halfway through the game is a bit of a cheat, as the game is mostly the same right up until the very end. This cherished indie title is mostly set in front of a brick fireplace, where players must burn several objects in order to see what happens. Credit cards, alarm clocks, spider eggs, you can ignite pretty much anything you want to, as you can't technically lose the game, which was intentionally done to spoof other games centered around similarly mundane tasks. Yes, I'm looking at you, cookie clicker. I want my 200 hours back. Where Little Inferno differs from what it's satirizing is in its climax, which completely changes everything. Throughout the game, in various letters you set ablaze, the player character is warned that the outside world has become uninhabitable. Upon burning the final item, the fireplace explodes, allowing the protagonist to witness the wasteland for themselves. This is the first time the player sees their own avatar, as the final part of the story plays out like a point-and-click adventure. Suddenly, what was an idle, time-wasting experience takes on a very somber tone. Number 3. Final Fantasy VI. Hey look, Square Enix are back! There better not be any ghost babies this time, otherwise we will be having words. Considering the first Final Fantasy game came out in 1987, and the most recent one released in 2023, it has been vital that the company behind the series keeps things varied and interesting. We've seen the franchise evolve time and time again over the years, whether in its main numbered entries or 20,000 different spin-offs, but sometimes evolution can happen in a single Final Fantasy title. Take Final Fantasy VI, for example, which was confusingly called Final Fantasy III in America for reasons beyond my comprehension. The last Final Fantasy game to feature 2D sprites, number 6 maintained the established focus on turn-based menu-selected combat, but its world got more open the more playtime was amassed. Its initial linear framework got less and less strict as time went on, allowing players to recruit allies and complete side missions in whichever order they wanted. Oh, that's nice. Just a shame that the next Final Fantasy game undid all of this good work and sank the whole series. Just kidding, the next one was Final Fantasy VII, widely regarded as one of the best video games ever made. Number 2, Spore. Spore is a game that chronicles a species' growth, from a single-cell organism to a space-travelling, world-conquering super being. So yeah, it's gonna have a bit of variety. From the minds of developer Maxim, this god game quickly established itself as one of the most unique games on the market, and has cultivated a dedicated fanbase that still speaks highly of it today. Its gameplay is split into multiple different stages, which not only mirrors Evolution, but also makes it easier for internet nerds like us to write lists like this one. Thanks, guys. In these cell and creature stages, the player pilots their fledgling life form around, consuming other creatures and acquiring more and more traits in the effort to survive. During the tribal stage, players must manage a group of their creations, RTS style, building settlements, attacking other tribes, and just generally having a nice time. By Spore's final stage, Space, the species has peaked and is now capable of roaming the cosmos, as illustrated with open-world sandbox-style gameplay that sees a player flying around in a spaceship to their heart's content. Thank God there wasn't an awkward teenager stage. Lord knows what the gameplay would have been like for that. And number 1, Nier. We promised you a Drakengard spin-off, and here one is. Well, a spin-off of one of the game's 5 endings, anyway. Once again brought to us by Caviar and the damn Square Enix gang, Nier is set 1,000 years after Drakengard, with players in command of the guardian of a sick girl for whom they must find a cure. They're also friends with a talking book, which isn't even that weird compared to the rest of the game. Nier is, in the politest way possible, all over the place. Platforming, action-adventure, hack and slash, these are just some of the genres you'll find in this utterly wild experience. At one point, it even becomes a text adventure, because sure, why not? Even the camera doesn't know what's going on, as its perspective shifts from third person to 2D side-scrolling to top-down. Much like Drakengard, your mileage with Nier will vary massively. If you like games that aren't afraid to change things up and take you in a wildly new direction, then give it a shot. If you just want a nice, simple gaming experience, then you should keep Nier far away.